All right, we are live. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Jim Gale Show. We're extremely excited to be here today. As always, my good friend Jim, how are you, buddy?
Doing well, brother. Fantastic things happening all over the world, and we are so excited to be part of it. How are you doing up in the tundra?
Oh, I'm doing great too, man. Despite the cold, lots of good things going on. I really loved our meeting this morning with all of our Freedom Farm Academy owners, and just the energy amongst that group of people, knowing what they're doing and where we're headed with that terrific business model and demonstration sites. What an awesome event this morning.
It was fantastic, and we had the good fortune of our good friend Pat Miletich being on the call as a future Freedom Farm Academy partner and collaborator, and also as one of our favorite product suppliers. Pat, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Good to talk to you again, even though it was a few hours ago I saw you.
Yeah. We're doing
great
good
to see
stuff.
you, Pat. Thanks for joining us.
No problem, man. No problem.
So let's share with the world. And by the way, I have been using Humigenics now for only a few months. And Matthew's got an even better story, which he'll share. But I've been using this product. I've been drinking it. I have been adding it to my coffee. I have been adding it to my bathtub. And I have been adding it to the soil at Gulf's Landing. And the plants, after a 40-year freeze, they're coming back. It's an explosion of life over the next 2 or 3 months. In fact, we add Humigenics to all of our compost tea. So we do these 50-gallon barrels of compost tea, and we put a couple of Humigenics in the compost tea.
Nice. Well, and I don't necessarily. What we want to do, Jim, is we want to make sure that the Humigenics is used for the ag and garden and lawn, and the folks that want to use it with the human consumption can go to organicsupersoldier.com and get that version. You're an ag guy, farmers, I mean, look, when all the crazy stuff was going on with Ivor/Mectin, farmers have been using that stuff for years. They squirted on crackers in the fall and the winter once or twice a month and would eat it because they knew then they, wouldn't get the flu and other stuff like that, or it would help them a great deal. We just say that. So, but most people are a little different than us. And so they can go and get the capsules that's refined and combined with the organic vitamin C at organicsupersoldier.com. But it does make a difference though, when you spray this on gardens, on lawns, whatever you want to put it on, that's growing out of the ground, it's going to help.
And why?
Well, I mean, it's gone through that decomposition for 60,000 years. It's the most nutrient-rich fulvic humic or humic fulvic, again, depending on the application, humic fulvic in this sense. But from the most nutrient-rich peat bog set in so far the world. So it comes from 45 feet below the surface. That's where the nutrients of 1,500 different types of plants have decomposed for 60,000 years, and the nutrients are really concentrated. And when you pull that up out of the ground and flash freeze it under pressure, creates a powder. You mix it in water. It's 98.9% water soluble. And so it mixes very well with water. And some, obviously farmers at the beginning of the year, if they're doing in-furrow, the NPK fertilizers and ammonia or whatever, you can mix it in a water tank and inject it with that. 50% less generally is what people use, save a lot of money on NPKs, and have great crops, have great yields. So, but it's, I don't know, the most versatile substance on the earth, really, is what I say. And it increases. I'll back up a little bit. So when you apply this to the soil, for instance, it starts the microorganisms in it that are 60,000 years old start to break down soil, make nutrients in the soil that are locked up, make them bioavailable to the crops or garden or whatever it is you're growing, raise oxygen levels in the soil, chelate and cancel out heavy metals and toxins in the soil as well as in the plants, so speeds up photosynthesis. So if you hit a garden or crops early on, it's going to speed up photosynthesis and get those plants off to a healthy start. And there's people that have gardens they will foliar spray their gardens up to once a week even with it. But agriculture folks aren't going to want to do that. It's 3 times generally is what you can go up to. But a lot are only hitting it on that emergent stage when there's 2 leaves, and they hit it with the foliar spray and off they go.
That is just fantastic. Now there's a fun little thing that I want, a little sidetrack, but it's incredibly relevant. I've been a huge fan of colloidal silver for all sorts of things, and turmeric for also. In fact, there are peer-reviewed studies that show that turmeric is more effective than chemotherapy without any negative side effects at healing some types of cancer, right? So there's all these natural solutions. And I know people who are in jail for both colloidal silver sales and turmeric sales. Now, Matthew made us aware earlier that your product, this incredible product, was taken off the market by the Canadian. I know we know the Canadian government.
Well, let's just that's not my product.
No,
different product, yeah.
Oh,
there was another fulvicumic product that was taken off the market. It was an MLM, a multi-level marketing company, and there's a cult of people apparently that will call the FDA and call Health Canada and just pound their phones and say a lot of insane lies about products and things like that, and then get them shut down for whatever reason. It's probably funded by somebody for nefarious reasons, obviously. But more than anything else, when I talk about anything, I do not talk about specific products and any kind of curing anything. We know that there's plenty of research out there about turmeric. We know there's plenty of research out there about organic forms of arsenic. We know there's studies out there about humic fulvics and all other antioxidants and organic compounds out there that were the original forms of so-called medicine before Rockefeller donated massive amounts of money to prestigious medical schools and had them change their doctrines into pharmaceutical petroleum-based products. It was all thousands of years of plant-based knowledge. So we know one is alternative and one is not. We know which one is alternative and which one is not. And so that's as far as we need to go with that conversation.
Well said, buddy. Well said.
But more than anything else is, I'm not a laboratory expert. My laboratory was wrestling rooms, cages, rings, MMA, my MMA facility. That was the proving ground for what worked. And if your body performs better because you're putting something into it that happens to be organic, well, that's something you want to use, right? So that's the one thing. When I noticed, early on in my coaching career and fighting career and all the other stuff of how I healed my own respiratory system through research and high-level antioxidants, getting rid of free radicals. Again, the antioxidants are organic substances. Free radicals are called free radicals because they're missing one electron, which means that they're not stable. They're not stable at all. And that would be heavy metals in your cells, synthetic chemicals, other things like that. So free radicals are bad. Antioxidants are good. And so people can do research on antioxidants, what you want to put in your body. There's a lot of antioxidant compounds out there. And that's something that people want to focus on, is putting those products in your body to get that stuff out of your cells and reset your gut bacteria. And your body's it's going to generally respond in a very positive way. Although keep in mind, when you take antioxidants and they start to remove heavy metals and toxins from your cells, you're not going to feel good potentially if you take too much of it at once, because it's removing the bad stuff out of your cells, and your body's feeling that chelation or removal process. And so you want to do it slowly, very manageable dosages and amounts of these antioxidants. And once you get through that phase of cleaning your cells out enough, then you can up your amounts and things like that.
Yeah. I just went through that. I've been using the analemma water with your product and some other things all at the same time. And I just had a major flush, all these mucuses and toxins. And I've been going to the bathroom like twice as much as normal. I'm like, but I'm eating less than normal. It's absolutely amazing, the difference. And I feel it in my vibration. I absolutely feel it right now.
Well, that's the thing is Americans are notorious, and Canadians as well, because we have such a food pyramid that's absolute ridiculous. People are eating massive amounts of, they order sandwiches with wheat bread because they think it's healthier, or they get, wheat pasta, for whatever reason, whether it's the way the grain is processed or whether it's the glyphosate that's sprayed on it. Nonetheless, it's causing, it's going to convert to sugar, which is going to create inflammation, which when it converts to sugar, then it'll convert to fat and you're going to gain weight. Americans are obese because generally the amounts of sugar that they put in, they don't realize that the wheat bread, the wheat pasta, all of that is converting and causing obesity and inflammation and arthritis and respiratory issues and everything else. So super important for people to pay attention to that. And I know I got off track a little bit there, but just super important for people to remember. Just treat yourself with a little more love with your diet, and do research on, again, what you should be putting in your body in terms of supplementation. Because if you go to, I'm not going to badmouth any specific health food stores or chains or anything like that, but generally everything you're going to pull off the shelf that's a supplement generally came out of a laboratory. Vitamins and minerals generally are either directly from rocks, so they're not organic, and many times they're synthesized as well, so they're not even real.
And we talk about sugars and the negative impact sugars have on your health. One thing that people often don't consider is how much sugar is hiding in their condiments, the things that they're adding as toppings to their food. It's incredible. One of them that stands out is ketchup. How many people use ketchup and the amount of sugar hidden in your ketchup.
And it's got wheat in it. It's got gluten in it as well to thicken it, to make it thick, right?
Yeah, exactly. As far as I remember, if you're going to be using condiments, really the best one without any sugar would be a mustard. That's really it. If you're, especially, you remember the people doing out in your space too, Pat, cutting weight for fights, just like bodybuilders cut weight for their shows. That was always the thing, is they would remove all the other condiments and they'd be eating only mustard.
100%. Yeah. 100%. And I use, like on a salad, I would make a 15 bean, the bags that come with 15 types of beans. And I would cook the beans, have those ready, strain them, put them in Tupperware. Then I'd have all the lettuce, the vegetables, all the other stuff. And I would make a salad mixed with the beans and everything else when I was cutting weight, and maybe some chicken, whatever, even sometimes some steak. But it would be lemon juice. I would squeeze lemon juice and then put salt and pepper on it, and I'd eat it like that.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Great.
Very clean. Very clean.
Yeah.
It's like eating sunlight. Pure.
Jim did some weight cutting.
Yeah. That was the one thing I didn't like about wrestling. I cut too much weight when I was a junior in high school. I wrestled at 101 my junior year. And in college, I wrestled at 158. It was insane. But, and that whole weight cutting thing is really a mental challenge,
Yeah, that much, when you've got an entire wrestling season and then freestyle Greco during the summer, cutting weight then too, it's, I mean, it does not make wrestling any funner, that's for sure. One thing about fighting, though, because generally at the higher echelon of fighting, you're fighting once every 3 to 4 months max. So I always looked at weight cutting in fighting as kind of that last step of mental and spiritual preparation. So you get in there, you're doing the work in the sauna. You got the plastics on, you got the Aerodyne bike or whatever in the sauna doing the work. It's that mental process of going through, preparing yourself. And then once you make weight and you start rehydrating and caloric intake starts and your cells fill back up, it's like you're putting on chunks of armor all over you. By the time you get to fight time, because of the weight cutting process and being in good enough shape to cut weight correctly, you walk in there and you're just so mentally focused and feel so invincible that I think it's a must almost to cut some weight.
Yeah, see, if I'd have known what you know now back in high school and college, it would have been a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, for both of us, to be honest with you. But yeah, that's the thing is, and there were times where cutting weight had to be done in an irresponsible way, where you weren't paying enough attention to your weight, and oh my God, I'm way over what I thought I was. And then you got to torture yourself, that much more, which is never good. So it's always, important to shrink your meals slowly, pay attention to water intake, salt load, a certain amount of time before the weigh-in, so that you actually retain some water, and then it helps it to flush it when you get in the sauna with plastics and stuff. Yeah. And there's tricks to it, right?
Yeah, I remember the credit card I didn't have credit cards back then, but I had a driver's license. Remember that one? We'd be in the sauna and we'd start at our ankles and we'd take the driver's license and we'd scrape off all the sweat on our whole body. And then by the time we're done, we'd start back at our ankle and scrape off, and that would create heat. And of course, there's people that have died from that. So I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying that's what was normal in our room.
Well, I think the 2 or 3 people that died cutting weight when they made the changes, one thing that they had in common was that they were all on creatine, and creatine creates water retention to a point where you're even going to retain extra water in your heart. So those guys all cut weight, in a drastic way, and the creatine for, in different ways played a part in them having, the issues that they had. So it's mostly that supplement creatine. And I'll say this, I was on creatine for a fight and I was doing Frappier acceleration training, which was all explosive stuff and sprint work. And I, for what it's worth, got into the Cheetah Club with, 20 mile an hour sprint or whatever, 21, I can't remember, 20 mile an hour. So I thought, man, and I was really strong. I was super explosive, but my endurance, I wasn't doing the longer runs. I wasn't doing the stuff I was supposed to be doing that I normally did. And so, I felt super strong in the fight, but man, I won the fight, but I was thinking, this is not good. I could feel the water retention from the creatine. So I highly advise anybody in endurance athletics, don't eat creatine. If you want to lift huge weights, go ahead, because when your cells get bigger and retain water, there's more leverage off of each cell in your muscles. So therefore, more leverage, you can lift more, right? So that's the whole idea behind that. It's, to me, useless, ultimately, besides powerlifting and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's very interesting. I didn't know any of that stuff until now.
Yeah, it's glutamine. I absolutely endorse using that.
Those are both amino acids.
Yeah, and yes, amino acids, the essential amino acids are super important, the ones that we cannot get, the ones that we don't create in our body. And L-lysine and a couple others have proven very effective. People can look it up for themselves. Very, very effective for overall health and being able to maintain weight and keep muscle mass, and as well as healthy respiratory system with certain respiratory situations that are going on in the world today.
Yeah. Arginine's a good one too, right? For the vasodilation, nitric oxide.
Yep.
Yeah.
Matthew blows me away every day. He's like a speed reader. He just goes through these books like every day. I think he goes through a new book and learns so much shit. It's awesome.
Well, the knowledge about the health and fitness world that came from at least a decade focused in that space, and all the while just having a passion for it, whether I was working in it prior or even after. I've just always been very much in love with that stuff. So I enjoy it.
Right. And, I say all the time that the Arnold Schwarzenegger pumping iron generation, that whole phenomenon that happened actually ruined athleticism, in a lot of places. You're not functionally fit at all. You might be able to bench press a house, but you can't climb a tree hardly at all. You can't jump over a fence. You can't swim across a river. All those different things.
Yeah.
I'd rather be able to do 100. I'd rather be able to do 100 pull-ups in a workout than bench press 400 or 500 pounds.
Yeah.
Well, and you think about a bench press, you're doing that movement in your life, right? Laying on a bench on your back, pushing something from you. And I always, at least when I would train clientele, I would much rather do push-ups. But then the other one, if I want to actually get in moving weight in a pushing format, I always found standing at a cable would be extremely effective, because now I've got to brace myself using my body to move that weight. And it was always amazing. Like, I had a strong bench press. I could bench a lot with my one arm at a time and dual. But as soon as you put yourself in that cable, it's humbling, because now you're trying to hold back that weight and it's ripping you backwards, and it changes everything.
Yeah. Well, try this sometime. Set the cable all the way down to the bottom with a single handle. Get in push-up position facing towards the machine, and grab with one hand and do full extensions pulling towards you in push-up position while you're stabilizing. Do both of those sides as many times as you want. Then turn around, face the other way, and do pushing directly away from yourself while you're in push-up position on one hand. That's a tough workout. That's some serious core while you're doing that.
Absolutely.
I'm going to be sore in places I forgot about.
My better half does workouts like that constantly, and she can do that stuff all day long, and she can take a pro athlete and destroy them, and if they try to follow her workouts, they're wrecked pretty quick.
It's so much fun when the football players used to come into the wrestling room one day a year for their credit, and they'd all be puking in the trash can. It was a lot of fun.
That's the way it works, man. Well, that's the thing. I loved football. Football was actually my favorite sport growing up, and I wrestled to be a good football player. So where I grew up in Bettendorf, Iowa, we had a powerhouse football team and wrestling team. So we would go to the playoffs every year in football. Well, wrestling season had already started. So I'm coming from football season, and for the first week, I was that guy puking, right? Because all the other guys had been in practice for a couple of weeks at least, and we come in there and just get wrecked for the first week or two until we get up to speed.
Yeah. Different ways of doing things, right? Yeah. One's completely anaerobic, the other one's more aerobic.
I think wrestling and swimming are probably the two hardest sports, along with probably rugby.
Yeah. Oh God, that's a whole different level. Yeah. Good stuff, brother. Well, how can people find out about your products? Where do you want to, how can we find out where to get your products and all that good stuff?
Yeah, well, people can go for the lawn and garden all the way up to the ag size, anywhere from 1.3 pound bags, because it's metric, 1.34 pound bags. They can go to soilsavior.com, all the way up to a ton, 2,000 pounds of the product. A lot of ag folks are purchasing it for that. And one 55-pound bag for foliar spray, depending on the amount you put in, with 20 gallons of water per acre, for foliar spray, you can go anywhere between 200 to 400 acres per 55-pound bag for one application. It's considerably lower cost than, we've deliberately priced it to be lower cost than a lot of the other humic fulvics, just because we want to make a huge splash, we want to make a huge impact, and we want to get the name out there. So soilsavior.com. And then for the human refined version in the veggie caps combined with the really high grade organic vitamin C, which is a powerful antioxidant as well, they can go to organicsupersoldier.com, and that'll take them to the landing page, and then they can end up on Chemical Free Body as well to get that. And they just, anytime you order that stuff off of Chemical Free, just use my promo code Pat 1776, and you get a discount, and off to the races you are.
I love it. And I'm using all of those products right now, and I could not be happier. I'm so thankful that we met you and Tim and the whole network. You guys have put your research in for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing that we try to remember. And I know I've said this to you guys, and you guys already know this, but a lot of people, the vast majority of Americans and Canadians and just people just don't understand that we are literally the exact same makeup of what our dirt is. That's what our bodies are made of, right? And so if we heal the soil, we're going to heal humans, because whatever is in the soil ends up in the water, ends up in the air, all of those things. So if we just really start tuning in, paying attention to what we're eating, where it's grown, what it was used to grow with, that's super important for people to pay attention to. There's always going to be a certain percentage of society that just doesn't care. They're going to eat whatever they want to eat. But for those that are tired of being obese, tired of being sick, tired of having respiratory issues, tired of having, all kinds of inflammation caused illnesses, like the arthritises and, even high blood pressure, which is caused by inflammation, do some research, dig into it, start researching the antioxidants and what they do to free radicals to get them out of your body that's causing the inflammation in the first place. And you're going to open up a whole new world of knowledge for yourself, and a lot of freedom in that, because once you can free yourself from a system that, has you trapped, that you have to keep going back to because you're not getting any better. Once you free yourself of those chains that are holding you down, your life, your perspective, everything changes.
That is
as Jim mentioned earlier about the learning, that's definitely true. I love it. And one of the things I've been learning about recently is soil, and the view that most people take about soil and how we grow, our annual gardens in the backyard, and then even how our monoculture system is working. We're leaving our soil exposed to the elements. And when you till soil almost gets like a scab on it, which I found very fascinating, the relevance to the human body. And that scab, well, when rain comes down, that scab doesn't let the water penetrate the soil the same way, which then changes the water cycle in those areas, which is why we're in scenarios in certain parts of the world where we've got incredible drought. And when it does rain, we get flooding because the soil has been destroyed.
Right.
And because that's been destroyed that way, we're going through climate change issues.
Right.
And whether we believe the story that's being fed to us by Davos or we don't, regardless, humans have done damage to the environment, no question. And the understanding now of how we can change our mindset around caring for soil first, rebuilding that piece first, which then will produce healthier plants. And the really interesting thing that I wasn't aware of is how the microbes in the soil are actually what communicate and work with the plants to feed them.
100%.
And there's an exchange between both of those things, which then produces the healthier food, which then obviously produces the healthier human. And we go back to that statement made, I don't know how many hundreds of years ago, but let thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food. Well, how that rings true when you understand those fundamental important pieces there around caring for your soil and what that can do for you when you do. And I think if we really did take that to heart as a society everywhere around the world, we wouldn't be in any of these scenarios of starvation, the climate change stuff, right? The temperature rising, like they say, or whatever. Again, whether you believe that stuff or not, the important piece is do what's right. First of all, care for that Mother Earth, which cares for us. And from there, everything else kind of falls into play. Healthier people, living a longer life, more vitality and energy so we can get more done. Our labor can be more productive, etc. And it's really, it's a path to freedom. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you're talking about too is, you know, with, I've observed, you know, for years and years and years, the stripping of topsoil off of where they're building developments or office parks or whatever for parking lots and buildings and everything. And they strip all the topsoil off, which is alive and has trillions upon trillions, you know, of microorganisms in it. Soil is alive if it's healthy. And they strip it all off down to the clay. And then they put a couple of inches of black dirt back down and throw sod down for where there isn't concrete, parking lots and everything else. And so, between that and then, you know, we think about lawn care, you know, and agriculture and golf courses, you know, throwing down, you know, petroleum-based fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, killing the soil, killing the microorganisms, killing every bug in the soil, you know, pesticides and everything else. So we're killing the soil. It doesn't retain water. The water runs off. They're even having farmers, they're making farmers build drain tiles in their farm fields to run it off even faster. So the water runs into creeks, into rivers, away from the area. And now you don't have proper evaporation rates that create rain, you know, east of you, you know, or, you know, whatever the current, you know, wind is traveling at. So that's a big, big problem, and something that I had been thinking about for years and years and years. And I finally asked, you know, a couple of ag experts who are open-minded and a biology professor also at a university here in Iowa. And they've all said, yeah, that's 100%. I mean, that's just common sense. So, you know, we've got to be able to pass laws that say you can't do this anymore. You can't rip the topsoil. You can't take it off of the ground anymore. You can't do this. We've got to cut back on, you know, conventional fertilizers and herbicides and pesticides. And like I said, the people that are using the humic fulvic, you know, that they can find at soilsaver.com, you know, they're using way less NPK fertilizers. They're not using pesticides. They're not using fungicides most of the time. They're saving massive amounts of money. They might not have as big a yield. They're going to have a great yield anyway, generally, is what we've seen. But they didn't spend near the amount of money per acre, you know, saving $100, $150, $200 an acre on inputs. What's that do for your bottom line, right? So you don't need, you know, and one of the guys who's been experimenting with this, who's one of the real experts in this country, if not the world, on biological farming, combining conventional and organic farming, is he said from his food grade corn crop that, you know, the farmers doing conventional corn would have had to do so many bushels per acre to make the amount of money he's making. He said it's astounding. I mean, the guy's making a killing. So, you know, farmers might want to start thinking about alternative crops as well, right? Cover crops too. The cover crops help retain the moisture. You know, there's lots of bugs that don't eat your plants that then exist, that are predator bugs. You know, a lot of that sort of stuff that goes on as well, you know, and there's products that you can use that he uses that just disrupts the communication between the bugs and the crops. It's not a pesticide. And the bugs don't know the crop's there. They don't even land on it. It's not there. It doesn't exist. They land on the neighbor's cornfield or beans, right?
Yep.
And he's been doing this stuff for 25, 30 years, and his neighbors still haven't figured it out.
Wow. You know, this is what we teach in permaculture is the cover crops, is the diversity. There are people making more money off of 1 acre, over $100,000 a year off of 1 acre compared to the traditional monoculture agriculture. And I shouldn't say traditional, the new traditional, right? This is all brand new. This is not the traditional way to grow food. So that's what we teach in permaculture, is how to create diversity, which by itself is a foundational element of the strength of a system.
That's great. Yeah, and I don't know if I've even told you guys this, but where I grew up, I think I talked about it maybe the other day, but where I grew up, there was a thing we called the Farmer's Hill. and it was just woods, and it was basically there was an old limestone foundation, a couple limestone foundations of old farm buildings from God knows when, how early in Iowa. But there were pear trees, apple trees, plum trees, peach trees, strawberry bushes, raspberry bushes, wild asparagus, broccoli, all kinds of stuff growing everywhere in these woods on this hill. And so it was an abandoned orchard and all the other stuff that farmer used to grow. So it was literally a food forest. My entire childhood was spent in there, and hardly anybody even knew about it. And we would build forts in there, and we'd live off the food in there, and just, yeah, what a great childhood I had doing that.
Oh, that's so epic. And I want to share real briefly too, the indigenous people of our land here, the land here that you call the United States of America and all over the world, did the same thing. That was how they stewarded the land. So in their day, the people were the stewards and the solution to abundance and diversity and all these wonderful things. Now, more lately, there's this evil element that's come in and destroyed all that, but that's the opportunity. And the opportunity, Pat, that you're bringing to people and that we're bringing to people together is the opportunity to become the stewards again. So in permaculture, we turn the problem into the solution. Davos will have us believe that humans are the problem. Humans are actually the solution.
Yeah. And again, did I talk about carbon amounts over the last 600 million years compared to temperatures?
Please do.
So I had an amazing conversation, and I've researched and dug into this stuff. I'm no ecologist. I'm no, climate scientist or anything like that. And people laugh and go, look, I can read data. I'm smart enough to read data and understand it. You don't have to have a PhD to read data, right? And understand it. So I had an amazing conversation with a guy who has worked for numerous massive corporations, the ADMs of the world and things like that. He's got numerous patents on some really amazing stuff. He was responsible for, just for instance, being able to inject the color white into anything, plastics, whatever. That was just one of his discoveries and patents, right? So the guy's done a ton of really cool stuff, but he's also an expert in the history of our climate. And his buddy is the guru of all of it. And so he showed me graphs and started going through and explaining things to me. And he's going, he goes, if you were to take your fingers and pinch them together like this, how much carbon parts per million is in between your fingers? He goes, so when we look at 550 million years ago, the amount of carbon in the atmosphere was at above 7,000 parts per million. And then fast forwarding through history, we'll just go to the last ice age. At the end of the last ice age, it was at 180 parts per million. And he said at 150 parts per million, all plant life dies. And we die with it. Everything dies on Earth at 150 parts per million. So he said, as we look at the graph currently, we are on a downward trend and have been for some time, which indicates grand solar minimum, mini ice age, all that we're headed for. Carbon parts per million is, I think, 380 to 420, somewhere in that range. And he said, we're still trending downward. And he literally said, he goes, the best thing that man could do, if man could change and make the climate better and make the earth more hospitable for life, for plants, for humans, for everything, is get your diesel trucks and cars, rev them up, and everybody start driving at the same time. Yeah, fossil future. Yeah. So that's the thing that's really interesting, right? We're headed into a mini ice age, technically, is through the experts that aren't, that aren't being paid by the powers that be. And so people can look it up themselves. There's plenty of graphs out there. Look up last 600 million years, carbon parts per million and global temperature, and do image search, and you'll be able to pull it up. And there's websites out there specifically that'll show you exactly what's going on. And then, on top of that, why do most graphs that the folks at DA/VOS, the World Economic /Forum, why do they omit the medieval warming, period? Yeah. Why do they completely omit that? So that it's a hockey stick graph, right? that it's all continually going up. And, you know, it's all everything's misinformation these days. We know that. We're aware of it, you know. So people just need to take a step back and understand that, look, I want a place for my children to grow up where they have freedom, where they have health, the opportunity to do what they want, the things that they want to dream about doing that they can do, that they don't live in a 15-minute city, a 15-minute section that they can't travel out of without, you know, being fined and all these other things. This is all about control. So I'm not one to be controlled. I'm not down with that. I'm just going to live my life the way I want to live it. And when the rub happens, well, I guess they can, you know, try to stop me from living my life the way I want to live.
Exactly, brother. Well said.
Yeah, we know that narrative has a very specific agenda behind it. And clearly it's not in any of our best interest. There are people who can't wait to be told what to do next. That's not us three, and that's not the people who are listening to this show. We would much rather go create our own path, living one of abundance and freedom and joy and, you know, no fear, faith and courage. You know, but unfortunately, our society today is driven by a lot of this fear narrative. And, you know, we've been seeing it, especially over the past 3 years, how they've weaponized health. They've weaponized the environment. They've now weaponized words. And you were kind of really pointing to some good things this morning, you know, how they've weaponized things like the word freedom and are now utilizing that stuff against the population. Can you touch on that again a little bit, Pat, on some of your discoveries over the past 3 years around the weaponization of words?
Yeah, I mean, this is something they've always done through history, right? That's what they do, is when they can scare people with television, radio, you know, show people having convulsions in beds in Wuhan, China, and falling down on their faces 3 months previous to what, you know, the so-called lock/downs happen here. It just builds that fear, and it plants fear and the thoughts that we have to protect everyone. We have to do what we're told. It's a belief that gets seated, like I said, in the lizard part of the brain, of survival. And there's no amount of data or anything else generally that's going to pull them out of that. They've got to come to their own conclusions eventually on their own as things change so dramatically that they go, whoa, okay, there's going to be a large number of people that aren't. They're going to follow each other directly off the, you know, cliff, the proverbial cliff. So that's really what it comes down to. But again, it is about taking back, you know, an anchor word, as I talked earlier, anchor word hijacking, you know, of being able to program people with laughter. So I can tell people jokes about climate crisis. I can tell people jokes about COVID and make them laugh, and I emotionally program them and deprogram them, right, and reprogram them. So you can do it through comedy. You can do it through fear, but that's not the best way to do it. I can tell you that, because my early approach was, it was a fear-based almost. Do you understand the ramifications of locking your business down for 4 months along with everybody else and putting on a mask and sitting at home and not doing anything in the economy? The prosperity wheels grind and rust to a halt. What that does, that leads to printing of currency, trillions of dollars, devaluing, you know, the monetary system, all of it. It's so easy to put together for most of us. Anybody that's been paying attention can see it. But it's where, again, the deprogramming, where I have to make people laugh about it in any attempt to deprogram them. And they're never, people that are going to listen to this, who believe in government, believe in health agencies, who believe in all of these groups that they are out for their best interest, are going to click this off, because it's so hard for them to listen to. It's so hard for them to accept that they could possibly be wrong, that their belief system could be wrong. And that's the only way I had to come to these conclusions over the past 25, 30 years, was questioning my own belief system, where it was, I had read The Creature from Jekyll Island about the monetary systems and the history of banking and all of that. And still, I got caught up early on in the 9/11 thing, going, yeah, let's go get them, man. Let's go get them. And then I'm having a conversation with one of my friends who goes, you ever heard of a company named Halliburton by chance? Look up Dick Cheney's connection to Halliburton, maybe. And so I would dig into that and go, oh, okay. Then you start, and then one more thing unveils itself, and the layers of an onion, and you start realizing. So that's the thing. I don't know how how this whole thing ends up. I can just tell you that I'm going to be sitting on 12 acres of food, pure food, nothing but food, thanks to you guys. And that's the way everybody should be doing is hitting you guys up for designs and be able to turn their quarter acre, eighth of an acre, whatever and up into a food forest and being able to be self-sustainable. Imagine, that's a crazy thing. Sorry for rambling, but
love it.
If 20% of Americans had food forests for yards instead of lawns, we would literally not be in this situation.
You're absolutely right. Because demonstration sites blow people's minds. We've had 300 people visit Goss Landing in 3 weeks, and we're not even done yet. Like we're just getting started, and it's already this epic attractor. And that's how it goes. That's where when we put this out there and demonstrate it, then we change the world. So thank you. And it's a lot of fun being part of this too. And you said, this idea of laughter and joy, rising our energy out of the fear narrative, the shame, and all these wicked control narratives and energies. It's an emotional psyop. And so to be aware of that is the first step. And then to step into faith and courage and joy, then that's freedom. That's the path to freedom.
Right. And it was really interesting earlier on our Zoom when you talked about, the fellow Canadian of yours, Matthew, that said that the word freedom causes people to recoil. Well, that's their problem.
Yeah.
That's their problem. If my child can't decide what to eat, and that's the thing too, is freedom is this, and this comes from Sean Patrick Flannery from the Boondock Saints. Remember the movie Boondock Saints?
Yeah.
He owned Hollywood Jiu-Jitsu. He's a great black belt in Jiu-Jitsu. He's a friend of mine. And I said, what's your definition of freedom? And part of what he said was, freedom is you being able to eat whatever you want to eat. And then when you get sick, you do not depend on the rest of us to pay for it. That's freedom.
Yeah.
And that's not to come down on people who are obese, because a lot of people don't have the knowledge to stop it. But more than anything else, starting in the late 80s, early 90s, obesity was already becoming the biggest national security crisis that we had to deal with. Mm-hmm. Because if Americans, for the most part, 9 out of 10 Americans were not obese, how many people would have said, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and wait this one out. I'm not going to get the treatment, the boopity boop. Yeah. I trust my immune system because I know what I'm eating. I know what I've been using for supplementation. I don't need it. I might cough for a week, whatever. I'll be good to go. Right.
Well, we've just been so boxed into trusting the authority. And I kind of boil it down to actually being a man or being a child. And being a man means you're taking responsibility for everything you can take responsibility and control over. And that includes your health. That includes your finances. That includes your mindset. That includes, right? So what most of us do today, unfortunately, especially in the Western world, is we have given up our power around most of these things. And the mind control of the government is who we've handed it all over to. And they're now choosing whether or not we get access to the things that we need in order to survive. And it's about to get way worse if it keeps going down this path.
Why would I let anyone from an industry that's the third leading cause of the demise of human life control over my health? Why would I even remotely think that that's a smart thing to do? I'm not, I'm not going to a hospital unless I get in a car wreck and, I got mangled.
It's completely illogical.
Completely.
It is. It's totally illogical. Everything. there's so many things going on that are illogical, but I mean, I remember the last time I went to my family doctor, a decade ago or more, easy, and it was just for checkups, he goes, "You're my healthiest patient every time, every year," and I go, "Okay." And then I just made the decision, why am I going back to this guy? Why am I paying money to know what I already know? He's going to tell me I'm the healthiest person he's got, and I already know that. I already know,
Yeah.
And
he, discernment.
even he's a great guy, but there was a big rub when all this stuff happened. And I said, he's a proponent of eating a lot of vegetables and eating, good food and things like that. But when they said, "Hey, it's time to get your treatment," when all this stuff started, he actually became a little hostile about it. That, no, you have to. This is, selfish to not do it. And I thought, yeah, he's programmed.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Well, you make a very good point there, Pat. Third leading cause of death. Like, you're more likely to die from the person who's supposed to be taking care of you.
That's what I was going to say. It's the first leading cause of death. Because
well, I would say that's a combination of the big food and big, it's our largest GDP is medical care in America, $4 trillion a year. That's why would you remotely think that that's a good thing? It's just not.
Yes, almost. I would say the vast majority of premature deaths, besides old age, are caused by the poisons and the poison producers of our society. And when you go up to the top, there's one entity that invests and really subsidizes all of the poisons. So I think it's all kind of one thing. You could call it evil, psychopaths, whatever you call it, but it's poisons and poison producers. When we become aware of them and simply choose what Pat is talking about, what Matthew's talking about, we choose it because we're adults and we're aware, then that's the path. That's the first step into freedom.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's how you free yourself from the system generally.
Yep.
At least that part of the system, the food system and the other, the med system.
Yeah.
That's really, really what it comes down to. And there's people that you'll tell them, they'll agree with you. You show them the path, kind of what they need to be eating to change things, or, supplementation, things like that. And they'll nod their head, yep. And then when you get done but my doctor, what's my doctor going to say? And we go, well, your doctor is not educated about organics, number one. So they're not going to know what to say generally. So they might not agree with what I say just because they've got no education on it, right? That's just kind of the way it is. So people have to, and people trust, right? Humans are trusting, and especially somebody with a bunch of letters behind their name. And they're going to go, I had a guy lose his temper with me and go, let me know when you're a effing doctor and I'll start listening to you. And all I could say was, okay, then the next time you go see your doctor, ask him what his plan is to get you off the medications that you're currently on. That's all I asked. That's all I said. And he, and then when I saw him, a couple weeks later, he goes, hey, I'd like to ask you some questions, about what food I should, so it made him think at least, right?
Yeah. That's what we can do. We can plant seeds of awareness. Even though they might not germinate into full awareness, the seeds are planted. And then all of us together are sprinkling little nutrients on these seeds. We're watering these seeds. And then boom, they start germinating. And that's what's happening globally right now. It's a beautiful thing as we are part of the mass awakening, the great awakening.
Yeah, and my phone is overheating currently.
All right. Love you, brother.
Okay,
Thanks so
guys.
much,
Thank you for having me, both of you guys, Jim and Matt. You guys have a great day.
You too, my friend.
Ciao.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, that was fun.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody, for listening to the show. And if you know any farmers then tell them about this. If you want to grow soil, if you want to build soil, if you want to build your own health, Pat has some incredible, very well researched and historically shown things that can help.
Cool.
Yeah, there's I just love that guy, man. The journey he's been on as a professional fighter and healing his own body using his own research, his own, taking the time to learn and figuring out what can he do that's best for him to help him heal, and then taking what he's discovered there for himself, applying it, getting results, continuing to learn about it, working with other people on it to help them heal too, and then learning about the soil and how valuable that was, and now pouring really his life into this portion, as now he's kind of finished his fighting career. I don't know, not totally done though, because I remember you saying he's got something coming up here soon, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's public knowledge yet, but
Yeah,
it's a very exciting potential thing he's got coming up that I'm excited to promote and share.
Yeah,
so,
awesome.
Yeah.
But just his journey on going from human health to now soil health, which is impacting human health. I love it, and I'm very grateful that we got connected to him through Sam Tripoli.
Yes, thank you, Sam.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, brother. Well, thank you everybody for watching, and share this message if you feel inspired to do so, and let's change the world. Faith, courage, and freedom. That's what this is all about. Let's plant some seeds.
Outstanding. I'll play a quick ad and we'll wrap up. You can bounce out, Jim, if you'd like.
All right, brother. See you soon.
Force everywhere with freedom.
Yoo-hoo.
Hey, Jim Gale Show listeners. Again, thank you for tuning in. We love having you here. We're so honored. And, I want to give you a little bit of exciting news. We've decided to offer complimentary food forest strategy sessions with a certified permaculture designer. These are 30-minute sessions where you get to sit down with someone who can really help you with a strategy for your own property. It's a great chance for you to ask some questions and learn and just really to dig into what's possible. This is 30 minutes with someone who's certified, knows all about permaculture and what's possible using this incredible science and working with nature. So head over to foodforestabundance.com and schedule your 30-minute food forest strategy session today. Again, that's foodforestabundance.com. And remember, get yourself registered for that 30-minute strategy session. And for doing so, we're going to give you a $100 coupon as well. So get over there, have some fun, learn about what's possible for you and your own property, and let's get growing some food. Thanks again for tuning in to the Jim Gale Show. Thank you again, everybody, for tuning in today. Exciting conversation with two-time UFC champion Pat Miletich, who has transitioned his life from working on human health and peak performance to now focusing on the health of the soil and what healthy soil can do for producing healthy food. And the comment of "let thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food" rings very true when you really understand how the soil works to grow healthy plants, and then those healthy plants can fuel the human body. Thank you again for tuning into another episode of the Jim Gale Show. We look forward to seeing you again here real soon. Have an amazing day.